The Bobby O Show.
Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bob Opotzner. I'm an attorney in Danbury, Connecticut, and I'm a Yale graduate, and that's an important part of today's show. And despite all the Duke paraphernalia you saw in the roll-in, I'm very proud Yale undergraduate. And why is Yale relevant today? Because I'm so honored to have the former associate head coach of Yale basketball, Justin Simon, who's recently been appointed the head basketball coach at Carnegie Mellon. And he's my guest today, and I'm going to introduce him along with Richard Kent, who's an attorney, been on my show several times. Richard is the writer of the periodical called I think it's called the Ivy League Basketball Report, but he'll tell us about that in a few moments. But we're going to focus today on Justin Simon and his new position as head basketball coach at Carnegie Mellon. Welcome, gentlemen.
Bob, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
It certainly is my pleasure. Justin, tell us a little bit about your background, and maybe we might start with having Jonathan, my director, show a few pictures of you so you can tie that into your background as a Yale undergraduate and Yale basketball player. Jonathan, you want to put the first slide up, please? Justin, who's that guy, Yale number 15? He's got hair on his head. Who's that?
Man, you're bringing back some memories here. I wish that was more recent than it was, but that was, I was fortunate enough, I played basketball at Yale from the years 2000 to 04. Which was a unique time. I was part of James Jones's first recruiting class. And that picture right there, we had a chance to open our season my senior year against UConn, who was number one in the country. And, the game was on ESPN, and that was before a lot of games got streamed. And really one of the few games that my friends from high school got to see me play in a Yale uniform. And that was
who's the guy you're elbowing?
That's Emeka Okafor right there. I should have elbowed him harder. He kind of kicked my butt that night.
And where'd you go to high school?
I grew up on Long Island, and I went to Kings Park High School. Just a small little public school out in Suffolk County.
Okay. Next picture, please, Jonathan.
Yeah, back then the Ivy League was all about Penn and Princeton. I think they had won the championship something like 38 years between the two of them in a row. And actually, on my sophomore year, which was Coach Jones's third year at Yale, we had a three-way tie for the Ivy League championship, which was sort of, the first blip on the radar of true success during the Jones era.
Next.
Yeah, that's me and a player named Judson Wallace from Princeton who had a great career. My kids look at this picture. I'm 6'8", and they're blown away how somebody makes their dad look so short.
It's the high heels. Let's go to the next picture. Oh, this is my favorite picture you have. Who is that wonderful young man with the Ivy hat on?
It's the best part about having coached at Yale for the last 14 years is how my family has grown as a part of it. That's my son Daniel. He just turned 7 years old, and he just absolutely worships the boys standing behind him in the picture. But the relationship that my children have with the players on the team at Yale was really one of the things that made it special.
When I go to the Yale games, and I go to probably 4 or 5 games a year at least, my favorite seat is 3 rows behind the Yale bench because I love to watch the way Coach Jones has you and the assistants like talking amongst yourselves, the players talking, and then he comes over and you join him, and then you have your conversation with the players. It's a lot of fun. I've seen your son and your wife in that same general area. I think that's the last picture we have, right? Up. And who's that number 8? Is that from this year's team?
That's from this year's team. That's Isaac Seliskar, soon to be star, coming off a great freshman year for the Bulldogs, and everybody has really high expectations for him this year. But
very good.
Besides that, one of the nicest kids you're ever going to meet.
Richard, I didn't introduce you yourself. Did I have the right name of your periodical? What's the exact name of it?
Ivy Hoops Online.
Yeah, and there are not a lot of periodicals that talk about Ivy Hoops, and I look forward to Actually, Richard sends me a text almost every time it comes out, and it's very useful and helpful information. Richard has a lot more sports involvement, which we'll get to in a few moments. But I want to thank you for coming to the show and inviting Justin with me to today's show. Justin, let's go back a little bit. Talk to me about the fact that you have been assistant with James Jones for 13 years, I think it was. Is that correct?
Yes. It was a really incredible story. I graduated from Yale in 2004. I'd worked a little bit as financial advisor for a few years. And then I kind of got sick of it. I took a job actually teaching chemistry, coaching basketball at Cardinal Hayes High School in the Bronx. Figured I would do it for a year. Ended up spending 4 years there and loved it. Helped start a lacrosse program. I was an assistant AD. I was thinking by the end I was teaching, chemistry, biology, and earth science. And I called Coach Jones, who I still call him Coach. I can't call him James. But I called Coach Jones and I told him, man, I think about asking this girl the question. I'm getting ready to get engaged. And what do you think? And he said, that's awesome. And hey, would you like to come back up to Yale and coach with me? And we kind of jumped in with 2 feet. I told my fiance, who's now my wife at the time, that, listen, these jobs are really transient and we're probably going to bounce around a whole lot. And 14 years later, we're still at Yale and it'd been storybook with the success we've had and the memories and the people we've been able to meet. But yeah, it almost kind of happened on a whim. And, my wife being a college athlete, she was excited to, kind of live our lives in a college campus setting. And I couldn't have asked for more during my time at Yale.
Is NaCl still the formula for salt? I just want to make sure I have that memorized.
NaCl is still salt, yes.
Okay. And is it also true that despite the fact that you're a varsity athlete at Yale, that you're the second best athlete in your family right now?
Second and not close to first, unfortunately.
And who's the best athlete in the family?
Well, my wife was actually a 3-time All-American at Duke, and she's in a bunch of Hall of Fames and doesn't let me forget that. Although I do have to tell her every once in a while that she wasn't quite Ivy League material.
I didn't realize your wife was a Dookie as well. I would have had her. Last week I did a show with these 2 young ladies who got recruited from Richfield High School to play at UNC Chapel Hill. If I had known your wife was a lacrosse player, I would have brought her on to balance out with the Duke atmosphere.
No, she loves it. She's coached a bunch. And, when my kids were in the crib, we had those battles between me handing them little, foam basketballs and her handing them little lacrosse sticks.
So what was your function when you became a coach at Yale and you took that career path? There's been a lot of people I've read about who started out in the business world and said, you know what, I really love my sports and got back into the world. But not everybody has the chutzpah, the guts, chutzpah in Yiddish, to take a shot at what they really want to do. And look how well you've done. Tell me, what was your role as you grew as the Yale assistant coach to the position of associate head coach?
Yeah, well, getting back to why, I think is an interesting one. My mother had passed when I was young. I was 8 years old, and she was diagnosed with cancer and passed 2 months later.
Sorry to hear that.
Appreciate it. And my dad, he raised me and my 2 brothers. And the message he imparted all the time was, make sure you enjoy the journey because nothing is promised, right? And I would come home and complain about my job, and I didn't like what I was doing. And I was more apt to open up ESPN.com than the WallStreetJournal.com. And he was really the impetus. He said, go do something you love. Figure out what it is and go find it. And again, I kind of figured I'd be at Cardinal Hayes for a year and go get my MBA somewhere. But I really fell in love with what I was doing. When I first got back to Yale, really it was, I was sort of the low man on the totem pole. I'd never coached college basketball in any capacity before. It was recruit, have great relationships with the players, try to help guys get as good as they could possibly get through film and extra time on the court. But definitely was not hired, from my knowledge of how to crack a 2-3 zone or anything super intricate. It was, just try to help out wherever I could and be positive and just bring a ton of energy and enthusiasm to every single day.
And anyone who ever watched a Yale game when you were coaching, you could see the enthusiasm. And I'm sure it's someone like you who's so enthusiastic. You're not the head coach, so you have to sort of sit back when the coach is giving the directions. And I do want to say, your dad's a very smart guy, because there was a movie called City Slickers, which you may or may not have seen. It's about a guy in his 30s. Billy Crystal is the star of the movie. And he asked this old cowboy, what's the key to life? And the cowboy said, find the one thing you love in life and build a career around that.
Yeah,
And
it's been storybook. Like with the success we've managed to have at Yale and the relationships that I've been able to build and people I've been able to meet, I couldn't have asked for anything more during my time.
Richard, you've been invited to a lot of practices and things at the Yale program. Do you have any story about Justin that shows anything about his enthusiasm, his quality as a coach? Anything you want to comment about what you've observed as a Yale basketball aficionado?
I want to talk about the growth of Danny Wolf, E.J. Jarvis, and Nick Townsend. Because
who are they, Richard? The audience may not know. Who are those players?
They were all, well, Nick is currently, they were all big men at Yale. Danny Wolf was drafted number 28 by the Brooklyn Nets, and he played his first NBA Summer League game last night. But I attribute much of their success, because I watched it, to the way Justin developed them as a big men's coach. I mean, I never in a million years, and I watched E.J. Jarvis, he's a great example, right from the start. And Justin just turned him into not a serviceable, but an excellent Ivy League center. And the time that Justin has spent, and Bob, you've even commented on this, you've seen the finished product, but I saw it happening. Nick Townsend is currently is a 3, 4, 5 man at Yale. He's going to be Ivy Player of the Year, preseason Player of the Year as well this year. And he used to contact Justin at 7 in the morning or 10 at night, and Justin would be at the gym with him, developing him. And that kid has tremendous footwork, tremendous moves, and he now is a really good outside shot. And that's Justin in large part.
Well, what Richard's comment is that I said to Richard the other day, I think Townsend, whose brother was Rhodes Scholar, and I'm sure this kid is not much less than that. I said, if you took the top 20 players who are the most improved players in the country last year, and I watch a lot of college basketball, I have to rate Townsend as being one of those kids. Where he came at the beginning and where he was last year, he has a great three-point shot. I mean, you do take a lot of credit for that. Talk about how it is that you help develop a player such as Townsend.
Well, I think the main ingredient for all three of those guys is all three of them were supremely naturally talented. You know, as much as I want to take credit for what they've done, I'm just a small part of their journey. But all three of those guys had great work ethics. They really wanted to be successful, and they were willing to put the time in. And I do think it helps. Listen, I'm 6'8". You know, there's not many guys my size who have done it who are coaching in college basketball. So it's a little bit easier to have a connection with some of the bigger guys. And, you know, I think I carry a touch more credibility, having done it multiple times with post guys at Yale over the years. But I will say, you know, Nick Townsend especially, it was unbelievable. He's like clockwork, right? He takes care of his body. He does fantastic in school. And he put so much extra time in on the court that there was no other outcome for him than to be wildly successful. And you know, for me, just to be able to be a little bit of a part of that and experience with that and help them along the way is really what's been very satisfying about coaching.
Can you point to a lesson or two that you learned as coach with the great James Jones that you're going to take with you at Carnegie Mellon, which you think will make you be as good a coach as you possibly can be?
Yeah, 100%. I think this, right after 14 years, my biggest takeaway from the Yale basketball program is the school is hard, right? Our guys, they live difficult, stressful lives, and the basketball needs to be fun, right? The basketball needs to be the best part of their day. And really, you know, people want to talk about culture all the time. And in a lot of ways, what it is on Tuesday night, are the guys on the team sitting around and looking forward to practice, or are they dreading practice? Because if they're dreading it, they're going to show up and just try to get through it. But if it's a situation where they're all looking forward to it, that's where you could start having real growth. And when they show up with enthusiasm and ready to work and ready to learn. But that's really the main takeaway. And, you know, the second one is the guys have to feel like they're part of something that's special and a little bit bigger than them. And, we've been able to do that at Yale. And as guys show up, they understand it's easier once you have had a little bit of track record of success. But when guys understand that this program means something and it's special to be a part of, I think then the sky's the limit.
I would also add into the following, and that is, as much as you learn from Coach Jones, as much as Coach K learned from Bobby Knight, as much John Shire, the Duke current coach, learned from Coach K, you got to be yourself. And there's certain things I'm sure that you have as your skills that may be a little different. I play a different kind of defense or whatever. And is it an important skill to make sure you decipher what I learned from others to what applies to me?
Exactly. I plan on taking a lot of our X's and O's, some of our practice ideas with me to Carnegie Mellon, but I'm also highly cognizant of the fact that I'm not James Jones. Our personalities are much different. And there's going to be things that I'm just going to do significantly different than him. And I don't know necessarily if it's going to be better or worse, but I have to stay true to myself and do what I feel is best.
Where are you today? Where are you sitting today during this show?
Yeah, so it feels like I'm in a little bit of an underground bunker. I'm actually down in Atlanta, about an hour north of Atlanta at an AAU basketball tournament. They had me in a back closet here with all the spare Under Armour sneakers.
I'm a size 12.
But I tell you what, right through the wall over here, there's 12 courts going, and I don't know if anyone could hear through the TV, but whistles and sneakers squeaking and fans going a little bit crazy. So
for those who don't know, what's AAU? If those who don't know.
Yeah, AAU is sort of the generic term for all the travel basketball that happens over the summer, all the club teams. So all the teams that are participating in this particular tournament are sponsored by Under Armour. Nike does the same thing and Adidas does the same thing. And really that's where we do the vast majority of our recruiting.
So you're recruiting today, and I'm sorry to take you away from the recruiting, but you're watching. What do you do when you recruit players? What do you do with these kind of events?
So it's unique, being at Yale and now at Carnegie Mellon, you have to do a lot of your work in advance because of the academic component. So before I come down to this tournament, I'll reach out to all the different coaches here and introduce myself if I don't know them yet and tell them, hey, listen, I'm at Carnegie Mellon now. I'm looking for a particular type of kid. Do you have anybody who might be a good fit? Now it gets difficult because everybody's idea of a good fit is different. But the academic component is very important. If I show up at a tournament representing Carnegie Mellon and haven't prepared academically for the players I'm going to see, it's going to be a disaster, right? So I know which guys I want to go watch. And then you're trying to project out into the future, right? Who's going to be the best player a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Because right now they're all just sort of data points on a graph, and some of them are going to go, horizontal, and some of them are going to shoot up with a lot of things based on their physical development, their love of the game, and sort of their work ethic.
Richard, you have been involved in evaluating basketball talent for many years because you were the part of the group of people who selected the players for the JCC, the Jewish Community Center in Bridgeport. Used to have an all-star game. We still have an all-star game, I presume, with Connecticut against New Jersey. And you've been involved recently in Washington, D.C. in a high school recruiting classic. So tell me what you do when you observe players and deciding who you want to invite to these kinds of programs.
Yeah, I think it's a different dynamic. It's called the Capital Classic in Washington, by the way. And those two events are the two oldest events, continuously running events in the country. I'm looking for players at the Capital Classic that have significant names nationally, and at it's now at the Cardinal Sheehan Center in Bridgeport. There is no Jewish Center anymore in Bridgeport. The top players in Connecticut. So we're going to be really gunning next year for Abdou Toure, who was one of the best players in years to come out of Connecticut. He's in high school at Notre Dame of West Haven. And if we can get him, we can put more fans in the stands. So what I'm looking to do in those two events is really to put more fans in the stands. What Justin is looking to do is far different, far more intricate. And it's not a one-game decision. It's a 3 or 4 year decision.
You know, I'm a little offended, Richard, because I played basketball every Sunday for about 15, 20 years at JCC, and I never got invited to your JCC Classic. I guess I had that problem that a lot of white Jewish boys have, which is I couldn't jump a lick. Justin, Carnegie Mellon is a phenomenal school academically, and Yale is a great school. How do you go about getting kids that you can recruit who can do the work academically at Carnegie Mellon?
Yeah, you know, it's eerily similar to Yale. Oftentimes that Venn diagram of kids who can, you know, come to a place academically and thrive while also help the basketball team chase championships. There's not a ton of overlap. So really you have to do your homework. You have to spend a lot of time, you know, before the events or after the events, finding out who can get into school and who could do it that way. Now, it's interesting. I did feel like at Yale, our biggest limiting factor in recruiting was not necessarily the admissions, but the fact that the Ivy League still doesn't offer athletic scholarships. So that was very difficult. Now at Carnegie Mellon, we're not going to have that obstacle because our peers who we're competing against, everybody has need-based aid as well. So I am looking forward to that. And truly, it's a little bit different academically. It's a little bit more STEM focused. You know, Carnegie Mellon's #1 in the world in engineering and robotics and AI, and actually an incredible fine arts school. We have a ton of players in our business school, the Tepper School of Business. So it's again, it's very challenging academically. And I think a big component in the recruiting is find guys who love the game of basketball. Because if they don't love it, it's going to be very difficult for them because, again, they're living very busy, stressful, hard lives. And if they don't enjoy the hoops, they're not going to spend the time they need in order to excel.
Justin, you mentioned that you reach out to the AAU coaches. How do you know if a kid has a 1,200 or a 1,300 on the SATs? I mean, do they give you that info? Is that public knowledge in your circles?
They usually don't. In the rare occasion, they'll know something more specific or they'll have the transcript. Oftentimes, you know, what they give me is sort of the beginning of a roadmap. Then I'll reach out to the kids directly or their high school coaches if I happen to know them personally, and start to drill down further. Yeah, because there's a big difference. You know, somebody with a 3.7 and an 1150 on the SATs is a good student in a lot of regards. But for the lens that we're looking through, that's somebody who would not be admissible at Yale or Carnegie Mellon. But, you know, they sort of give us at least the roadmap to get going and figure out what direction we need to go. Same thing with sort of about the level. You know, it's very much, you know, people kind of figure out if a kid's getting recruited by Duke in North Carolina, well, he wouldn't be a great fit for Yale. Right? If a kid's getting recruited by Yale and Harvard, well, he might not be a great fit for me at Carnegie Mellon because they're not going to want to choose the particular level that you're at. So there's that component as well, where they could kind of point you in the right direction.
Justin, I want to read something written by the director of athletics, Josh Cantor. Is it Cantor? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Centaur, I'm
sorry. And he said, quote, Justin is a tremendous fit for Carnegie Mellon. His deep commitment to student-athlete development and his experience with championship programs make him the right person to lead our men's basketball program into the future, unquote. This is an exciting moment for Tartan basketball, and I am thrilled to welcome Justin and his family to our community. That's quite high praise. Tell me about the process that you went about and that happened for you getting hired for this job, and also the Mr. Centaur put a lot of pressure on you saying how wonderful you are.
Well, I really appreciate Dr. Centaur. He's been unbelievable through the process, and was a big reason I decided to take the job. Now, you know, listen, we were extremely comfortable at Yale, and it's not like I was really looking to leave. But when the job at Carnegie Mellon opened up, I knew it was something I had to pursue. You know, the previous coach had been here, Tony Wingen had been there 35 years and had built a great legacy for himself. But for me, you know, looking at Carnegie Mellon from afar, you know, I think they compete in the top league in Division III, the UAA. You know, it's sort of as close to Division I basketball as you could get. We travel all over the country, and we treat ourselves like a Division I program. You know, I have family in Pittsburgh, and I come out every year, the last 12 years or so. And every time I come out, the city has gotten a little bit more trendy. You know, it's sort of turned into a big tech hub. There's a ton of, you know, the hospital system is very robust here. There's a ton of parks and zoos, and it's a really pleasant place to raise a family. And they totally rebuilt all the facilities at CMU, which again was really important to me. You know, the players on the team are not going to have to sacrifice the basketball for the academics or vice versa, right? So they could come here and be the best versions of themselves on and off the court. And I think that could lead to a lot of success here.
Tell me, I think you have some transfers coming in for next year. We only have 2 minutes left in the show. Time flies quickly. You have a couple of transfers. Tell me about your team next year that you have for Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah, we're very excited. You know, I think we have a chance to make a lot of noise. We have one player as a graduate transfer coming from Cornell, and another one from Dartmouth, and a third from Brandeis. And really all three of them are super excited to be a part of the Carnegie Mellon community. And they understand what the graduate degree from CMU is worth and what that'll do for them. You know, I told these guys, listen, the rest of their lives, they'll walk into a room and people are going to sit up a little bit straighter and, you know, listen a little bit closer, and even girls might find them to be better looking. But it's but really they're excited to be a part of it. And I'm, you know, I can't wait to get going here this fall with our new group.
Richard and I will be at either the NYU game. You're playing at NYU in New York, and you're playing at Tufts in Boston. We hope to be at one of those games. I can't resist, though, in the last 30 seconds. Give me a little scoop on Yale basketball for next year. Do you mind if I ask you about that?
No, they're going to be tremendous. First of all, it's an unbelievable group of guys, but led by Nick Townsend and Casey Simmons as seniors, with Samson and Isaac and Trevor and Riley and Jordan and the new guys coming in. It's I'm going to be watching from afar. I think they have a chance to have the best team in school history.
Richard, quick comment.
Listen, the picture you showed before of Isaac Seliskar, he reminds me on some levels of a guy named Mie Oni who played at Yale. The kid can jump out of the gym. He can shoot it. He's athletic. This is going to be a really good team.
Justin, I want to thank you so very much for taking the time to be in the show with Richard and me. I wish you a lot of luck. I wish you a lot of pleasure. And I hope you continue to show the joy and enthusiasm for college basketball at Carnegie Mellon, even though you will not be wearing a Y on your hat or a Y on your shirt. Thank you so very much. Good luck. And I hope to talk to you soon during the season if you have time. This has been Bobo Potsner with my guests, attorney Richard Kent and Justin Simon, the new head basketball coach at Carnegie Mellon. Have a great weekend.